How do you have electoral manager who will not by itself, though it's a clear case, no pretense. It was an election that INEC itself rigged.
My Edo people, I don't feel talking. Truth not the hard, no one talking. Wanna listen to Sam Amadi.
But they don't vote. So Nigerian democracy failure has two forms I want to focus on. The first form is that leaders are not really responsive to citizens. That's very important. And what triggers that lack of response? In fact, at the end of the day, Robert Dow, the greatest scholar of political science, says that democracy is actually a process by which leaders respond to citizens. Short and simple. Now, if leaders don't respond again, then democracy has failed. What will make leaders not respond? One of the most important things is that if the process of getting to power is now captured, then the incentive to respond to voters is low. And that's why electoral reform is critical. Now, electoral reform does not guarantee that people who get to power are going to be competent or not. That's a different argument. But it gives two things, which is very important. One, it provides incentive for those who are elected to try their best to respond to those who elected them, because those people can't remove them. Now, what we're working towards now is a process where politicians are no longer afraid of being removed through the ballot box. All these defections are partly based on that. For example, a seat like Akwa Ibom is a safe seat for PDP. You know what is a safe seat? A governor of a state like Akwa Ibom under PDP would feel secure, because historically the party is strong and the governor is doing at least fairly okay. A state like Delta should be a safe seat. But what you are seeing now is that there's no longer safe seat anywhere. What the governor of Akwa Ibom said is that he doesn't want to win an election. Let's forget whether he makes or not. But he said, I don't want to win an election and the court to take it over from me. So two dangers we have now is, for me, first is that the electoral umpire has a history of flagrantly by itself rigging elections. We have to take that as an existential crisis. How do you have electoral manager who will not by itself, though it's a clear case, no pretense, it was an election that INEC itself rigged. So I'm surprised how many people will be constructing alliance and everything and not paying attention to these values. Can we have a simple process of a manager of election who at least we can show that when we defeat the incumbent, the result will be clear. The second is the courts. The courts has been very clear in promoting the idea that once INEC rigs election, we will sanctify it. I don't know about today's act, but if you look at consistently from the court's jurisprudence has created the impression that you cannot upset a declared result. And what that creates a fait accompli, both on the politicians themselves and the electorates. Because the electorates see the results come out from the courts every day, reinforcing the idea that once INEC has declared you, no matter the procedure, the court will simply certify it. Kogi was a clear case where the tribunal itself ordered for INEC to provide evidence. INEC provided evidence. It was contested. The tribunal ruled in support of the evidence. They went to address, the tribunal said it was proper. Then judgment, the tribunal said we made a mistake. That evidence shouldn't be there. And the Supreme Court says, well, if there's no evidence, no result. So I want the political class to take seriously this issue of electoral process, because if we don't guarantee that we can upset incumbents, then there's no incentive to continue to come together to fight. That's very important.
Thank you.
And the final point about how democracy fails, therefore, is, I think Lukman is right about party, but I'll put a caveat. You can have well-organized parties that will still not create development. The most organized institutions in this country today, I would say, is IPOB and Boko Haram. They are coherent, they are structured well, and they deliver terror. But, so I want to see political elites struggle with the question of development. It's not just about unity of the party and being organized. I agree with you. It's to create stability. You have the president and the chairman of the party. The chairman of the party is strong. He's not going to the airport to escort the president to. But at the same time, I want to hear that the party understands the challenge of development and has created a development agenda. There are issues in this country we have not resolved. I want the list to resolve. First, the issue of nationality. There's still a crisis of who we are as a people. And a political party that wants to change the country must have a clarity as to how it wants to see the Nigerian citizen. That's number one. Religion and state, we still have several issues we've not made effort. So I want to say that whereas democracy is failing, what is failing most is statesmanship, the capacity of Nigerian elites to deliberate and craft consensus on development and use it to mobilize the people. Things are bad. In fact, I'm surprised if an incumbent party, this government wins election, because all over the world, even if you are doing well, after 2 cycles of election, one tragedy or other will make you lose election. So whenever you see a country where a party wins successive 2, 3, 4 elections, it tells a story that the electoral system is wrong. Because even if you are doing well, the people will find a reason for an alternative. Because if there's a crisis, terror, attack, poverty, failure of economy, is the incumbent who ought to go. If the incumbent wins, the electoral system is rigged.
All right.
So I want to conclude on the note that the people of Nigeria needs a coalition. But the coalition they want is a coalition built first on defining our problem and agreeing on a change agenda. We've seen all over the world that corruption is part of human nature, in the sense that democracies are struggling with corruption. But the difference is this: the difference between corruption and impunity, and corruption and a captured state. The theories of corruption would say that there was no corruption when we didn't have difference between private and public. Meaning, if there's no distinction between private and public, there will be no corruption. So, for example, public officers are expected to act in a particular way because there's a distinction between their private affairs and their public affairs. Is that also? When a country's rule-based system has not developed or is undermined in the way that people can't distinguish between public and private, you get a classical case of grand corruption. So, and that's why rule of law is important. And that rule of law, like he pointed out about citizen power, is demand and supply. I think somehow we have assumed that people in public office own the public office. So because they own it, we have outsourced to them, we have allowed them latitude to deal with whatever they want. So take, for example, the issue of River State. Of course, the Constitution gives the president the power to make declarations in emergencies. It's necessary. But the Constitution says you have to do that through a procedure. Is that also? And it says legislators have a right to approve, but you have provided for you how to approve it. Now you go and don't follow that procedure. It doesn't matter whether the logic is good. It might be that there's need for emergency or not. But that procedure is important because there's this difference between your private feelings and the public good. If you don't follow that, that's corruption. So I think that the first thing about Nigerian corruption is that there's a sense in which, when I was in public office actually, I saw that, for example, the computer in the office is your own computer. Is that also? Where you go, you carry it. But it's not your computer, it's a government computer. The even staff belongs to you. You can decide to do with them whatever you like. I think we must see ourselves as operating at a very primitive level of accountability. And it's cultural, not in a religious sense. Cultural, I mean, the norm which we ascribe seems to support this idea of owning the state. So I don't like to talk about corruption because it's not about who stole 5 naira. It proceeds from the concept of how should we relate to the state? How should I relate to a public office? Let me complicate it for you. A legislator goes to be a senator, and he doesn't know that his job is to interrogate, discuss, debate, review. So if it's an insult to review a president's communication, why should we say we should give him this? Why should we reject it? So it's a functionality. Professor Ali Mazuru told us this in MIT in those days. He says, a wristwatch is to tell time, okay? Now, if an African wears a wristwatch and is asking somebody for time, it means that he doesn't understand the function. I think our problem is that we are not understanding the function in roles we occupy. You have Auditor General of the Federation, he has a job to do. Accountant General has a job to do. You have EFCC, you have ICPC. So, I don't want to sound academic, that's what they call hyphosomnic mimicry. You know, scholars say when you set up institutions to mimic something, but you don't even, the underlying reason, you don't even believe in it. So why have ICPC? Why have EFCC? Why set up auditors if you don't even believe in auditing? There was a Nigerian Auditor General who released under Obasanjo then, who released a report, adverse, and they kicked him out. So this is the conclusion. The idea of corruption in Nigeria is perverse because the Nigerian state is a state that is captured, not by one person, by elite, and they continue to struggle over how to share that capture. So even as we're sitting here now, we have captured Nigerian state. We are looking to capture it and share it. And I want to be very straightforward and final note on this. Today, you're talking about election. Today, we had a press conference between Abuja School and NLC and TUC. And the idea was telling them that until you make electoral reform, an industrial crisis, labor union, and a street fight, it will not work. You have to create a popular movement. You don't just sit in NGO. That's my fight with them. I was telling him then, with the NGO, I said, INEC would disappoint us because the incentive structure does not permit them. We have to make electoral reform a matter of NLC will go on national strike, TUC will go on strike, the parties, IPAC was there. All of them should be part of a national movement for electoral reform. The problem with Nigeria is that we have a low energy politics. Low energy, elitist. When in a room, we have meeting. The streets, you need to bring high energy politics, where the people themselves are part of the struggle for electoral reform, for anti-corruption, or for anything. Without that way, it will not work. Low energy means they can sidestep it. If you do conspiracy, they do conspiracy. If you hold meeting and attract 3 people, they do their own and vote 3 people. But if you make it a popular movement, where the Nigerian people themselves, the labor union, NLC, TUC are part of it, we might succeed.